a program taking a closer look at the concerns and problems affecting the quality of life of our citizens in their homes, communities, and country. Now here is your host Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament, breaking down the issues.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Down the Issues. Of course, I'm your host, Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. Let me apologize again for having a late start tonight, but I know you guys are pretty anxious to hear what is it that we have to say on tonight's program. We have lots of interesting issues, and as explained, the intention of this program is to break down the issues, delve deep down into it so that you, the public, can have a greater understanding and a greater appreciation of what we really put out there as our policy and our position. We also want to respond to some of the lies and misinformation, disinformation being peddled out there by the People's Progressive Party. So we'll get straight into tonight's program. I can see a number of persons already tuned in. We're really sorry for the late start. I had a press conference today held in Georgetown, and I am actually back in Essequibo this very minute. And so straight out of the car, straight into this program. And I have with me tonight two very good colleagues who are no strangers to this program and to you, the public. And so I want to get straight into the action tonight. Lots of issues to discuss on the press conference today, and so many other issues that would have occurred in the last week. And so just excuse us. I beg your forgiveness for this late start, but again, we'll get straight into the issues. So tonight, I want to bring on my guest right away without any delay. I want to bring on my two guests, Ganesh Maipal, who MP Ganesh Maipal, operator, you can bring him up on the screen. Ganesh Maipal, who is no stranger to this program, he's Member of Parliament. He is the person who shadows local government. And so we want to get into that discussion. That I welcome Elson Lowe. Welcome Elson Lowe. Is Ganesh in the background? If Ganesh is not there, he will be, or he should be shortly. I was saying Ganesh shadows local government elections. And so we want to have some discussion on local government elections, obviously with local government in the air. And of course, let me say a special welcome and good night to my good friend, economist and advisor to the leader of the opposition, Elson Lowe. Good night to you, my friend.
Good night. Always good to be on. I see tonight we're both wearing a very similar outfit. Viewers, we color coordinated for you tonight.
We're always in sync. I believe we're always not blowing out my own whistle, but we're always in sync. We're always on top of the issues. I think that is why this program has the potential to grow and become one of the top programs on our various various platforms. Now, Elson, we don't have much time because I was just we were both on the press conference today, and I had to travel to Region 2, and so without any preparation, I'm here from the car straight into the program. There are
I
two
know you're a
things.
road runner. You're a road runner today. When you said that you're heading from the press conference all the way home, I said, "Wow!" But you made it.
Yes. Look. Today at today's press conference, we seek to highlight to the public two separate issues but equally serious. The first issue that we dealt with on the press conference was that of the EU follow-up mission to Guyana, and there are a number of things that was said on the press conference. So let me just put it into context. Let me just explain for the public. The EU observer mission was here based on an invite from President Granger in 2020 during the 2020 elections. They, like many other observer missions, foreign and local, would have observed the elections, at least parts of it, and would have made the pronouncements on it. They would have made whatever they would have observed, and the EU observer mission specifically made a number of recommendations, and so we want to get into that. But before we get into that, our statement in today's statement, we said that electoral reforms in Guyana have become increasingly necessary as GECOM continues to shirk its constitutional responsibility. And so I want to start the conversation right there, because over the last 3 years, we recognize that GECOM has been, the decisions, first of all, being taken at the commission level are not sort of, are completely biased, completely in one corner. And so it appears to me that the commission is not functioning the way it should, with the intended purpose of the three persons from government, three from opposition, and a chairperson who is supposed to be neutral and unbiased. They have shifted away from that order, and now we see that the commission is basically making decisions based on what their feeds from the government. What is your take on it? And if we can, just have a discussion on that quickly.
Well, I think that it is perfect timing for them to be coming to Guyana. It is perfect timing for them to be coming to Guyana because we were just dealing with the GECOM Commission, with GECOM not being willing to look into hundreds of instances, potential instances of voter impersonation and fraud, really, where we've seen potentially so many signatures forged, people signing on behalf of dead people signing on behalf of people who no longer or have been in Guyana for years. So it is a good time for the youth to come and see the shortcomings of GECOM and the increasing, reduction in confidence in GECOM that we've sadly been witness to. So I hope that I know that we'll be drawing these types of things to the attention of the EU mission to help them to get a sense of what really is going on in Guyana and why it is so vital that we see these types of reforms. I know that many people were looking forward to the GECOM chair and to GECOM more generally dealing with the widespread allegations of fraud that we saw right in the local government elections. But sadly, we've not seen GECOM take a stance on that will facilitate removing those on the list where there are fraudulent signatures, but rather kind of take a hands-off approach. I think that has really disturbed quite a lot of people. As far as we can tell, I don't know. You may have a better sense of it than me, but it seems like it's as many as 5 regions where we've seen these types of fraud. Which as I remarked to people, there's only 10 regions in Guyana, and 5 of them had fraud. I mean, that's pretty
I,
crazy.
I,
Half of the regions.
I
That's
want to bring in Ganesh here. Okay, he's coming up. Good night to you, my friend and colleague.
Good night, Sherwin. Good night, Elson. Let me apologize for my late entry. You know, with the return of constant blackout in Guyana, one can only not depend solely on this electronic means. But the lights came on back, so I'm here.
Hopefully
Ganesh,
they stay on.
I, I want to get you straight into the conversation. Jagdio, in his press conference just after hours, coincidentally, every Thursday, just after our press conference, came on and said, well, we're complaining that Claudette Singh always rules in favor of the PPP, but he finds, or he found, that we constantly find ourselves on the wrong side of the law. What's your take on it? But before you go, I should add that he went on to explain or give examples strictly surrounding the 2020 elections. But what he's not saying are those decisions post 2020 elections, all the different issues that came up, which required compromise, which required, due to there not being any compromise within the two sides, or any agreement within the two sides, the chairperson found herself voting on in each of those instances with the PPP. What's your take on it?
Well, first of all, let me say to you that I believe the chairman of GECOM main role was to really be an arbitrator, is to really be someone who tries to find common grounds between the two sides, the three from the opposite side and the three on the other side. And we have not been seeing that coming from Claudette Singh. Instead, what we have seen, and I have said it earlier, is her actions really show that she is fully inclined to support the People's Progressive Party in all of their actions. Now, let me give you a small example. In the 2020 scenario, Claudette Singh was the one who said that these abnormalities, irregularities, and anomalies are of grave concern and worrying. And it requires investigation and it requires action. And today, similar anomalies, abnormalities, and irregularities were brought to her attention through her officers in the respective regions, and she seems to not say anything now. So it is as though the fraud is in her favor and she has to sing for that supper. And as I said earlier, she is nothing else but a poodle of the People's Progressive Party. And I maintain that position because she has not, in any way, shape, or form, signaled to the Guyanese people that she intends to be impartial and to basically have the Guyanese people's interests at the heart. And that is what is worrying under the circumstances we find ourselves in. Jagdio's current rant and rage over what is said by the opposition is testimony to the fact that he sits there as vice president, collects a huge sum of money with absolutely nothing to do, and taxpayers have to continue to treat him like if he is king of Guyana. But what he fails to realize is that this is not the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Ganesh. Now, the EU, I want to get into the EU's recommendation. Um, but before I do that, I want to quote a little paragraph here from the press statement today. And it says preparations for the 2023 LG, or local government elections, have amply demonstrated that the electoral process is still prone to political manipulation, corruption, and fraud. They further exposed an elections commission that has been politically hijacked, is poorly chaired, and is administratively unfit, and is unaccountable to the people. Now, look, this seems to me, we've now discovered, this is what we have discovered in the run up to the LG, or this is our conclusion from what we saw occurring, specifically on nominations day. But Ganesh, you would know that this is nothing new in this process. We saw these very types of events in 2020, and prior to that, in 2015 or 2015, I believe, um, while you had some talks and some issues, we didn't see this level of fraud. At least it wasn't proven and that sort of thing. But Jagdeo subsequently came out after the 2015 elections, and we have him on record saying that explaining how fraud could be committed. He went so far as to explain and he referenced an Apnu area without saying that it occurred there, but he skillfully referenced Victoria, and he mentioned that the scrutineer could be so far back in the room and feel intimidated, and you have ROs who are sympathetic to a particular party. They would have extra ballots and they put in votes. And so based on that, he made that call for clean voters list. He thought that the GECOM chair should be changed, and these different recommendations he had. A few years later, while the coalition tried to correct some of these things in the form of creating a clean voters list, they challenged it. That brought that to a halt. Then came 2020. We saw all of these that we're talking about here in 2023 local government elections. We saw the corruption, the fraud, the manipulation. What do you think caused this change of heart in Jagdeo? Changing his mind, changing his mouth, first of all.
Let me tell you this. Fraud, irregularities, wickedness, evil behavior, corruption, and all the likes are in the bosom or the womb of the People's Progressive Party. It is not something that they can easily hide from. And more people are becoming educated about the actions of the People's Progressive Party. People are familiarizing themselves with current affairs, paying keen attention to the political aspect of our country, because they are recognizing that the politicians on the People's Progressive Party side are not acting within the best interests of the Guyanese people. So they are paying attention to what is happening. I will take you back to 2006 when the PPP had a seat in parliament that did not belong to them, and they had Sam Hines squatting in that seat when it really and truly belonged to the AFC. You will remember that. It was Gokul Budu, I think, that did Jumbi mathematics to satisfy the People's Progressive Party. I will remind you, in 2011, there was an attempt to do yet again Jumbi mathematics, because the majority of votes did not go to the People's Progressive Party, but there was a calculation to give them a majority in the National Assembly. When the majority went to the APNU and AFC, and it was Vincent Alexander who had his head on and recognized that madness and called it out for what it was. And in 2015, there was an attempt to bring in fake statements of poll into GECOM, maybe to change the results as it was, but that did not succeed because the fake statements of poll were pulled up and caught before it could have even reached to the commissioner's level. So let us not try to fool ourselves into believing that the People's Progressive Party is a saint party. Fraud, as far as I'm aware, based on my reading, fraud basically and rigged elections basically began in the People's Progressive Party when in 1963, I think, They favored Brintley Horatio Ben over Balram Singh Rai in their very own internal elections. And Balram Singh Rai wrote about it in a book that was published and spoke about how he was cheated out of office that was facilitated by people like Chedi Jagan and the likes. So the People's Progressive Party can't come to this country and attempt to tell us that they're saints when we know better and we know what the evidence point to. And let me make this very clear, Shurwayne. There is no credible evidence, no tangible evidence to point that the APNU AFC is associated with rigged elections or associated with any form of irregularities, abnormalities, anomalies, or whatever you want to call it in elections. All that is out there in the public domain is Jagdeo and the People's Progressive Party opening their mouths and saying that the APNU AFC is involved in these wrongdoings. That is all that is out there. Ask them to provide you with one single shred of evidence to substantiate those claims. They cannot. They strive on manipulation. The People's Progressive Party strive on distraction politics, and it is absolutely wicked of them to believe that the to believe that the Guyanese people can be easily bamboozled by their stupidity. We will not be.
All right, Ganesh. You know, you're making a very salient point there. They're trying to focus the issues of the 2020, the anomalies and all the issues that were there, focus it in the direction of the APNU AFC rather than placing it at at their own feet and the feet of GECOM itself.
But
And
Sharwin,
yes, go ahead.
Comrade Sharwin, allow me. The people cannot allow that to sink in their heads because you have to look at where these anomalies, irregularities, and abnormalities happen. And it was 49 ballot boxes without statutory documentation to verify the votes in them. It was thousands of votes of people, names being ticked off on the official list of electors when GRO confirmed that they were all dead. There were a number of people who the immigration office confirmed as migrated and did not return to this country on or before March 2nd, 2020, and their names were ticked off as being voted. And all of this happened, or majority of it happened, within the vicinity of the lower East Coast, in villages that have traditionally voted for the PPP. But more so, when the actual count of the ballots in those boxes were done, the votes in its majority, in its absolute majority, went towards the People's Progressive Party. You had a number of oaths of identity that were unsigned and placed in those ballot boxes. You had missing poll books. You had a series of faults that can only be termed as systematic fraud occurring in those 49 questionable boxes. And all of them, most if not all of them, came from communities that have a traditional support towards the People's Progressive Party, and it was confirmed when the votes that are in them were actually counted. So they can't put no blame to the APNU AFC because we did not accumulate in those boxes a majority of votes. The majority of votes in those boxes were counted for the PPP, not the coalition. In all the boxes that had a majority for the APNU AFC, there were boxes that were justified. There were boxes that we could have proven the votes. We had the confirmed official list of electors. where the names that are ticked off on them or were ticked off on them coincide with the amount of votes that were found in the box. We have the folio that matched the number of voters in the folio, matched the number of names on the official list of electors. The amount of ballot papers that were given to those polling stations, it coincided with the amount of voters on the official list of electors. The poll book was in order. The poll book was submitted. You could have done a forensic audit on all the boxes where the AP and UAFC got a majority of votes and know definitively that those votes are legitimate. But at no time can you do a forensic audit on the boxes where the People's Progressive Party got a majority of votes and conclude that it was legitimate, because it was not legitimate. There were no justification, no authentication, no verification to substantiate that those votes the PPP accumulated are credible. So basically, the installed regime, as we rightfully dub them, the fraudulent regime, the regime that is sitting on or squatting in office, are doing so on votes that cannot be verified.
All right, Ganesh, and rightfully said, the PPP has a long history of election fraud and irregularities. I can recall since 1997 when the very Claudette Singh vitiated those elections. Jagdeo at his press
And that
conference
was when he was
today
not political,
would
That
have
sitting, that is
falsely
when he was
claimed
sitting
that the PNC, and he
on the
said
judge.
APNU actually, but it wasn't APNU, it's PNC, would have challenged. You can recall the 1997 election challenge. Yeah, now he's saying, he's trying to say that Claudette Singh did this, implying that she did us a favor. And so now the same Claudette Singh cannot, we're now saying that Claudette Singh biased because she's not in our corner. But that's not the point I want to make. I want to highlight the lie uh, or the misinformation being peddled by Jack Yu. In that statement, he said today to the entire country and world that the PNC challenged, agreed with the PPP to use ID cards and then turn back and challenge it after the election. When in fact that was not so. The PNC challenged the outcome or the results of those elections. And it was Claudette Singh, in her deliberation, in her looking at every aspect of the case, recognized that mandatory use of ID cards would have been against the Constitution. So I just wanted to make that very, very clear. I want to make it clear to people that you cannot trust. If you don't understand the issues, you might be carried away with what Jagdeo says, with all these flurry, nice, well-dressed language. I want to move on because we don't have the hour and a half that we should get. So I want to bring in Elson here. Elson, today at Jagdeo's press conference, he gave the public an insight into their campaign strategy. And that strategy basically is to make promises to people. He went as far to say that, we our candidates will tell people we'll fix their roads and, all these different things that we'll do. Now, what struck me is that they are prepared to make these promises to people in a local government election without acknowledging the fact or recognizing at the end of the day they are the government, the party that is in government. And so it is their duty, whether locally, centrally, if people have issues as a government, you have that responsibility to deal with it. How is it that they can separate themselves um, as a central government in this case, and because it's local government, you come to make these promises when you're actually a government. Additionally, they're trying to pin, at the same time, they're trying to pin the state of Georgetown to the PNC, saying that the PNC would have been in control of Georgetown for 50 something years, 50 plus years. How is it that they can be allowed to do this when they would have been the central government for the last 30 years? Um,
Well, you know,
since 1992.
they
How is it
seem
that
to
they can
have,
do that?
it seems to have
Jagdeo
this,
specifically.
they seem to have this perspective on governance that if you don't vote for them, you're not entitled to any of the benefits of being a Guyanese. So you didn't vote for them, no streets for you, no health care for you, no education for you. Of course, we know that our constitution provides that Guyanese should have access to certain things and basic tenets of good governance, that it's the responsibility of the government to provide for all Guyanese, not just for those who supported them. That, however, seems to be lost on them. It's always been a concept that's been lost on them. When it comes to Georgetown, we have to recall that despite the fact that we've had control of the city council at Georgetown within the PNC, the PUP has routinely frustrated the council by refusing to provide the funding that it is supposed to provide to the city council. And so, while the city council may make efforts to deal with the issues in Georgetown, if the PUP is deliberately refusing that funding, then that will create problems. On the other hand, viewers will recall that when we were in office, we provided funds to the local government organs of Georgetown and the surrounding areas, and we saw marked improvements. Today, the city is again flooded. But under our time in office, the city was hardly ever flooded, and many areas that are low lying and typically would flood, those areas were dry or almost completely dry. Someone even said just before the change of government in 2014 going into 2015, man, doesn't the city smell to you? It always smells bad. That's because there was garbage piling up all over Georgetown. When we got into office, we ensured that garbage was picked up in a regular fashion and that the city was lived up to its name, which is that it's the Garden City. So I think there's this perception in the PUP, and of course, it comes from their need to dominate and control everything in society, that if you don't support them, you're not entitled to the basic standard things, the bare minimum that everyone in the society is entitled to. And that really is the domineering approach that they have, which is one of the main reasons that you've not seen the country develop and you've not seen unity in Guyanese society.
All right, thank you, Elson. Now I want to shift gears because of time. There is much that we will continue to discuss on local government elections and these lies being peddled and what we have to offer as a party. But I want to shift to the next topic in the area of oil and gas. Today we would have reiterated our support for the judge's ruling. We highlighted the fact that this issue is now a national issue. People are coming together um, on this matter, and the general word on the ground out there amongst the populace is that uh, their interests should be placed first. They agree with the ruling of the judge, and that the government should not be appealing such a judgment. Yet, Jagneo today would have doubled down even after our press conference and all that has been happening. You have the fellow walking from Borbis and all that is happening. And I see some other seniors joining him. And if those folks can walk. But with all of that happening, Jagdeo, in his initial explanation for the appeal, said that the ruling makes the EPA look bad. That as though they cannot do their job. He further said he gave 4 reasons three or to four reasons for the appeal, and this is one of them. EPA looks bad, so that's reason number one. Reason number two, he said we're in murky waters when a court will seek to tell an agency how to do its work. In this case, it's the EPA, is the agency. So the court telling the agency how to do its work according to the law, that's a problem. The third reason is that the court should be predictable. It should make predictable rulings. And so apparently what was being predicted by the PPP is not the outcome here. And so that is a problem. Uh, today, and that is what he said before. I'm trying to get what he said something very, very astonishing today. He said that the judgment was unfair about the EPA advocating their responsibility, and he went on to say how hard the EPA would have worked to get a $600 million US dollars insurance, and the judge was being very judgmental with loose, disparaging language. What's your take on all of this madness?
Listen, the PvP has got itself in a real quagmire here, and they don't know what to do. Now, Jack Leo's coming out with all different types of arguments and explanations. But, when you see someone coming with 5, 6 different explanations, you know to yourself that the person has no idea what the correct explanation is. So they're trying to see what will stick. And today as well, he said, oh, the issue is complex. It should be left to the experts in the EPA. It's too complex. People don't know. Folks, it's not that complicated. The plain words of the permit say that the operator is responsible for any cost. Now, I can read for you actually the plain words of this permit because it is simple. The permit holder is liable for all costs associated with cleanup, restoration, and compensation for any damage caused by any discharge of any contaminant, including the cost. Plain language. If there's an oil spill or a similar event, they're responsible. The permit holder is responsible for that. Now, in addition, this is where there's the PvP is trying to wiggle their way out, but it also says that the permit holder shall provide financial assurance to cover all legitimate liabilities, and it is specific as to what that insurance should be. It should It should be insurance as well as a parent company guarantee. That's right there in the permit in plain language. Now they're trying to say, it has to be a fixed amount that the judge did not understand. Folks, it is not for Jaglio. It is not for the government of Guyana. It is not for the PUP to decide for themselves what the laws of Guyana mean. That is the role of the court when there is a dispute. And the court has ruled that the EPA did not carry out its functions in the way they should have, and that it should have followed what is the plain language of the permit. So starting from that perspective, we can't just no one should just be taking Jaglio at his word and taking the PUP at their word in this regard. But even when you look at that, that's one aspect, which is the judgment, looking at the plain words of the permit. Even there's an additional element which he can't run from, which he's trying to hide, or which he's trying to avoid in the course of his discussion today, which is the $600 million insurance that you've spoken about. The judge also ruled that even the insurance that exists does not live up to the specifications of the permit. The permit says it has to be from a triple A level insurer, someone who an insurer that has a high rating, and it's specific as to the agency that should rate it. The existing insurance is from an affiliate of actually a subsidiary of Exxon Mobil, and that is not rated as highly as is required. So the judge also said that in addition to the first failure, which is the failure to get the parent company guarantee and the exposure that the country has faced, the existing insurance that the PVP is pointing to is also in violation of the permit, and the government is trying to dodge this issue. The upshot of this, my fellow Guyanese, is this: Um, if there is a major spill in Guyana, which could run to tens of billions of US, without having a parent company guarantee in place, what can happen is the permit holder, which is ESSO, a subsidiary of ExxonMobil, they can shut up shop, say we can't afford to pay this, and Guyana will have to foot the bill for such an oil spill. That is the real risk here. So we would have to pull out of our treasury as much as 10, 15, 20 billion dollars at minimum, really, if you have a major spill to deal with these issues. But of course, it could end up being much more expensive than that if, as an example, this oil spill spreads, and this is what we spoke about, I believe, at the press conference today, to other countries, and other countries are affected. And in fact, it was indicated that many countries in the Caribbean are vulnerable should there be an oil spill. And so the government again would have to deal with that. The Natural Resources Fund would have to be emptied. The treasury would be bankrupt. The non-oil economy would be in a recession. It'd be chaos, really, if we had to pick up that tab. And so essentially, all that we're asking is that any oil company that is engaged in these activities where there's a major spill, that they should clean up the spill and deal with the damages associated with it. It's not rocket science. The PvP is trying to make this thing out to be rocket science, trying to hide, but the judgment exists. Um, People, I think, understand that this judgment is important and understand the implications of it. And so, in an attempt to overturn this and public opinion to get away from the fire that they're under, they're throwing 5, 6, 7 explanations out there, and nobody is buying any of these explanations. And ultimately, the court has ruled. We've said that they should not appeal. We'll see what comes out at the next stage of those rulings. But we need to, and I think this is where it's important for us to remember that being patriotic is a big part of being Guyanese. Ultimately, we want to protect Guyana. We want Guyana to grow. We want Guyana to benefit from oil and gas resources. But we also need to protect the country, because otherwise you could end up not really benefiting from all of this hullabaloo in the oil and gas industry. Sadly, that is the danger that we now face, and the danger that the PvP is hell bent on exposing the country to.
Sherwin, allow me to add my voice to all that was said by Elson, and to say to the Guyanese people, your viewership,
All right, thank you,
the population at large,
yeah, go ahead.
thank you, and to say to them that even though we are hearing the words Exxon Mobil in everything that is happening, and the ordinary citizens may be of the belief that there is an agreement between Guyana and Exxon Mobil, I want them to understand that all agreements relating to oil production in Guyana, Exxon Mobil is not a signature or signatory. All the agreements, all the permit, the environmental permit, and all the communication and all the legal battle and all the legalities and everything, contractual obligation and signatures happen between Guyana and ESSO, Exploration and Production Limited, EEPGL. EEPGL. EEPGL is not Exxon. People must understand that. EEPGL is not ExxonMobil. EEPGL is a limited liability company that is registered in the Bahamas. And its parent company is Exxon. So people must understand that. So this big agreement that we have for oil production is between Guyana and a limited liability company that is registered in the Bahamas with the acronym EEPGL. EEPGL, which means Esso Exploration and Production Limited Guyana. What we are saying on the opposition side, and I believe all right-thinking Guyanese, is that this limited liability company called EEPGL does not have ownership of any assets. All the assets that they will get now is what they will get from this oil production in Guyana. And it is paid for by Cost Oil. So really, is we oil paying EEPGL to own things or to temporarily own them? Because at the end of their production, those assets belong to the Guyanese people, because it's the Guyanese people money that paid for it in the first place. So when you talk about expenses from Cost Oil, it is the expense for the production of the oil, which is really we oil. So all these things that are happening with EEPGL claiming that they have assets, is not them assets, it's our assets. So even this $600 million that is coming out as the insurance coverage, the premium is paid by Cost Oil. So EEPGL ain't going in their pocket to pay anything. It's from Cost Oil it is being paid. So our argument is that in the event of there being an oil spill, and God forbid, because I don't think no Guyanese want an oil spill, but we have to have protective measures in place just in case. In the event of an oil spill, 600 million US, which is the insurance coverage, is there. But what will happen if the cost of recovering, of returning the country to normalcy, of cleaning up, what will happen if that cost exceeds 600 million? And even as Jagdeo tries to go around, come around, dodge, duck, raise up high, but don't aim at the point. Even if we want to accept, because no documentation has been provided, even if we want to accept that they have negotiated a parent company guarantee of $2 billion, as he has been saying, we now have a cost of $2.6 $2.6 billion. That is even not enough to cater for an oil spill. When we look, and people who have smartphones can go on Google, and all they got to type in cost associated with oil spills. I think the BP oil spill will be the first one that will turn up. And if I'm not mistaken, it is over $145 billion, or somewhere thereabout. I stand corrected. Perhaps Elson can help me. That is currently associated with that oil spill. $2.6 billion is not even a single drop in the bucket. So what the Guyanese people are asking for, what we are asking for, what all the other sane people in this country are asking for, is a simple letter. A simple letter with ExxonMobil as the letterhead that says, "Dear Guyanese," or "Dear whoever," "Dear Kemraj Parsram," or "Dear Irfan Ali," or whoever. They could even write it to whoever. They got to be written to, or even "Dear Minister Vikram Bharat." Subject, and you put a dash and you put the subject as parent company guarantee. And this one line, we at Exxon will cover all the expenses associated with returning Guyana to normalcy and all the expenses in terms of an oil spill, should there be an oil spill. Full stop. Signed, President of ExxonMobil, or President and whoever else. But that's all. We just want a document that is legal in nature to guarantee us as Guyanese that we will not have to go into our pockets to fix any problem associated with an oil spill that they may bring on to us. That is all. And I know Elson may be a little bit more qualified in this industry of oil and gas exploration and economics. So perhaps he can say whether I said something out of order or not.
No, absolutely. And the risk is that, which you're, I believe, highlighting, that if this oil spill ends up costing quite a lot, tens of billions of dollars, that they'll just let EEPGL, which is the limited liability company, let that go bankrupt, say goodbye, God bless you, and they'll be on their way and they will not pay for the oil spill. That is essentially why we need the parent company guarantee. That is really what the name of the game is here. And one of the other issues that I think is important for your
But
viewers.
Elson,
Yes. Yes, Sherwin.
go ahead.
One of the other issues important for your viewers to understand is oil spills are very volatile disasters, and so you may think that one intervention will work and it will only cost $1 billion or only cost $2 billion. But what happened with the BP oil spill, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, that major BP oil spill, is that they tried multiple interventions and they couldn't get the oil to stop leaking out of the well. Multiple things, 125-ton stone cap, all sorts of different engineering solutions, and they couldn't get the oil to stop spilling. It spilled for I think like 3 months, and so this is why we're saying that we need to have a parent company guarantee, because if it is $2 billion and the first group of intervention doesn't work, and then a further $5 billion is required, then you're gonna start to see the oil company back away, and then it will become extremely controversial. Meanwhile, the oil will still be spilling. That is why this is such a serious issue, and that's why the government, in appealing this decision and in looking to reduce Guyana's coverage, is acting in a truly unpatriotic fashion. And I just want to make one last clarifying point here as well. The government is saying that the EPGL has assets. It has, first you hear it is 8 billion, then you hear it's 14 billion. I don't know how the assets change in a week by 6 billion, but essentially the FPSOs, the offshore ships that extract the oil, those are assets, sure. But the government can't possibly be trying to tell Guyanese that if there's an oil spill, they want the oil company to sell the same FPSO that's producing the oil to get money to give the Guyana government. They can't be saying something. That is so ridiculous, because that is the same FPSO that is actually producing the oil to run the operations. All that will have to happen is that we'll have to go and buy another FPSO, and then the Guyanese people will have to pay for that new FPSO from the same cost oil. It's these kind of ridiculous explanations that you keep hearing from the government as they try to figure out some way to get themselves out of this hole. There is one way to get yourself out of the hole, which is to comply with the permit and to ensure the operations are run in a safe, effective, environmentally friendly manner. That's all that's required, not all these gymnastics.
Elson and Ganesh, there is much for us to lose as Guyanese, as a country. I could see the fishing industry in shambles, not only from the standpoint of of us not well having to import fish, but also the thousands of jobs there. I can see liability claims coming in from 12, 14 different countries, which we will have to stand. Potentially, if we don't have the coverage, our oil industry we can kiss the oil industry goodbye. That can very well be the case. The case that you mentioned with BP and that oil spill, I believe BP had to pay out of their pockets nearly $70 billion, and the overall cost was probably close to $150 billion. But today, Jack Dio, in a wild rant, actually estimated what an oil spill out there might be like. And he said, I'm very certain, you can go back to the tape, he said it will be somewhere about 2 to 3 billion. This is just, is there any limit to this madness? Is there any, is there any explanation, any plausible explanation as to what exactly is going through the Jack Dio's minds and the minds of the PPP, and why they are so bent on going against the people, the interests of the people of this country? Ganesh, I know we're out of time. But you, given all that was said, this is a matter of national interest. It is very, very important to us. Our livelihoods are at stake here. And you, as a member of the APNU AFC, would have tabled a motion for us to discuss this issue in Parliament in an effort to have the government reverse their decision to appeal. Just quickly, in 30 seconds or so, explain what transpired there, and we'll have to bring down the curtains.
Well, in 30 seconds, I think that the Speaker of the National Assembly is biased and full stop.
Gentlemen, thank you for being on this program. We'll have to continue this discussion. There's so many issues here to be discussed, and I'm certain next week and the weeks coming, we'll have an opportunity to get deeper into these issues and to analyze these issues, to a greater extent. Thanks for having, thanks for being on the program tonight. And I must say a special thanks to the viewers. And please join us again next week, where we can delve down into the issues and have further discussion. Good night and God bless.
Good night.